Hey, welcome. You're in the War Room live from Capitol Hill in the occupied nation's capital. It's Wednesday, 3 February, the year of our Lord 2021, now with over, I think, 33, 34 million downloads on Real America's Voice, John Frederick's Radio Network, Dish Channel 219, Comcast 113, Rumble, Telegraph, Gab, Roku, Pluto, everywhere in the known world. Also, G News, GTV, in Mandarin to the diaspora of the Chinese people, and blown through the firewall later in the day. Okay, we got a lot to get through today. We're actually honored. We have the big story from this morning was Gates. The Rudy story really hasn't hit. That's starting to hit. Rudy saying that he's going to sue. Not only is he not going to apologize, he's going to sue those guys. So that we had Gates this morning saying he was going to resign from Congress to represent the president if the president would put him on the team, and he would argue to show the receipts. And he brought up the key point we'll get to later that, hey, it's a free option because Rand Paul's brilliant move in the Senate last week makes it's impossible for these people to convict him because they've already said it's unconstitutional. There's 5 votes against him. That's it. Senator Kramer of North Dakota is in the Politico this afternoon talking about what this has got to be. And he's saying, hey, you shouldn't say that. He could have, guilty, could be convicted. No, Senator Kramer. And Senator Kramer's staff should get these people up to speed. It's impossible. They already voted that it's not constitutional. You can't go back and then say, oh, I'm going to convict you on an unconstitutional proceeding. How's that going to work? The president has a free option. It's like a team going offsides. The offense gets on football, the offense gets a free play, just should throw the ball downfield. And he should throw the ball downfield. To let the nation know that this is still, whether it's in Pennsylvania, Georgia, there's still things going on. The media just won't report them. We're now going to go out to Maricopa County in Arizona, the great state of Arizona. I love Arizona. We got a lot of family out there. Fantastic place, great people. They're fighting. And one of my favorite activists, if not my favorite activist, Liz Harris. And that's because we argue every time Liz is on here. Liz, you remind me of one of my 3 ex-wives sometimes, the way you argue with me, okay? So tell me, Liz, you're actually, the reason it's important, we're starting to show with you, you actually are making history. Grassroots is making history out in Arizona, and nobody's quite understood what you're actually doing, which is very powerful. So tell us what's the state of play with the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, the Senate of the state of Arizona, the grassroots. What's the bid and the ask of actually what's going on with the supposedly full forensic audit of Maricopa County and its voting machines? Liz Harris.
Okay, so I'd like the audience to know I'm speaking for 1,700 people that have now signed up to help us with this grassroots effort of canvassing door to door. We see the fraud. We understand there's fraud. What the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors has done is their way of honoring the subpoena was to go out and choose 2 auditing firms with the US EAC accreditation. It's not even a true certification to come in and do accuracy and logic test. The people of Arizona, that's not what they're asking for. So our state senators, Arizona senators, became bold enough to say, okay, now it's our turn for that equipment and the paper ballots and the servers and everything so that we can conduct our audit with those auditors that will do a deep dive audit. And yesterday, this is from Representative Warren Peterson. It is truly unfortunate that today Maricopa County has refused to comply with the subpoena and allow the Senate to conduct a forensic audit of the election. There is no legal consequence if they allow us to use the machines and ballots. However, there are serious legal consequences for failing to comply with the subpoena. So now, what is happening in Arizona? The Arizona Senate today is drafting a resolution of contempt against the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors for failing to comply with the Senate's subpoena. And that is what the people of Arizona want the Senate to do at this time.
So tell us, when that happens, what happens next, and how close do we actually get to you guys having the audit that you would be comfortable with, that the people out there would be satisfied with, and that you could pull the trigger on your 1,700 door-to-door canvassers?
Okay, so We have, once again, we have affidavits and declarations showing the fraud. What we need to put the cherry on top to finalize and to make to make a court case get through all the courts without them being thrown out. We need the 2.1 physical ballots, because the intention of the voter,
2.1 million, right? It's a number. 2.1 what?
2.1 million physical ballots that are currently stored in a vault.
Yep.
Many people feel, it's been a month and a half since the subpoenas have been, what has been corrupted and what hasn't. And then, Steve, do you want to know about the deep dive audit that we're looking for?
Yes, please.
We're looking for election log files, election settings, accounts and tokens, Windows servers and desktops, Dominion equipment, Dominion network, access to the logins for the Dominion records. We're looking for election systems and software. We're looking for the voter rolls. And most importantly, and I can't stress this enough, access to all original paper ballots, including but not limited to early ballots, election day ballots, and provisional ballots. Now, I talk with a lot of national experts around the country, and fortunately, Arizona is one of the states that has this stuff intact. So we would be the perfect state to do the deep dive forensic audit, and I am very confident. You can call me biased. I'm very confident, based on the work my canvassers have done over the last month and a half, we will find a minimum of 106,000 fraudulent ballots, and I make that statement with great faith.
How did you derive that? How did you derive the 106,000? How did you get there?
When you take our initial sample size of 3,500 homes visited, and we had 539 homes with people residing in those homes that should not have voted.
Yeah.
Or some of them were just massive cases of, you had 2,032 people voting out of a single vacant lot, on the voter rolls, and then you had 147 of them actually cast ballots.
Okay, we're burning time. I got time limits here, but I got to ask you, just for the audience, because this is historic, and this is the way it should be done. This is not trashing companies or anything like that. You've gone through the list of what you guys demand. How close are you, and what has to happen for you to get the deep dive that you've just outlined that will satisfy the grassroots, the Trump supporters, and believe will provide the evidence for all the voters of Arizona, even people that voted for Joe Biden, to prove that this was on the up and up, or if it was not, what is the exact number that is wrong and not calculated right? What action needs to be taken to get that deep dive? What I need the public to understand is that this is not a partisan issue. This happens to Democrats, Republicans, independents. It happens to everyone. Many people feel 2 elections were stolen from Bernie Sanders. We need to get to the bottom of how this voter fraud actually works from A to Z. And the way we're going to do that in Arizona is we have to get our Arizona Senate united. We do have holdouts. And those holdouts have to understand that if they do not jump on board with the rest of us, again, we're doing this for all parties, if they do not jump on board and agree to this deep dive, it's not going to happen, because we have to be united and say election integrity is important. And for the other side, whenever we use the words election integrity, they talk that we're trying to suppress votes. That's not what it's about at all. There is no voter suppression here. We want every vote to count, and we want to make sure there's no shenanigans. Every legal vote to count. Every legal vote to count. Every legal vote. Last question. If you were at Mar-a-Lago today in that beautiful sunroom and had a chance to have a cup of coffee with the president, who would have a Diet Coke, by the way, if you were there and you saw what's happening on the trial, and they're going to argue the Constitution, since you're one of the key states, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona, are where it all comes down to, and you're only 8,300 votes outside of there, what would you tell the president? Should he pursue to go and argue the voter fraud, and risk these guys voting against him and finding him guilty, convicting him, Republican senators? Or should he just argue the Constitution, get out of there, and move on and let the Democrats beat him up? What would be your recommendation?
I would recommend that he argue the voter fraud, because the truth, we need the truth. The truth has to come out. This is not 2020. This is something that people have been speaking about for decades. So again, voter fraud is the truth. I do agree that he should argue the Constitution as well, but the voter fraud problem has to be stopped. And if we remember, in 2017, Trump asked each state to research the voter situation, and the states, including our great state of Arizona, rejected it. They refused to investigate. And even though Trump won, he said, let's open an investigation, and it got thrown out. The cover-ups are huge.
Liz, how do people,
So, yes,
what do you need? This audience is massive, and they're activists, and they want to take action. What do you need this audience to contact people in Arizona, senators? Is there websites you can put up there? And how do they keep track of you? What are your social media coordinates? And what's the page? What's the web page they can go to?
Okay, so to sign up to see how Arizona is doing the canvassing efforts, this is very important. Sign up at www.itsmellsfunny.com. Itsmellsfunny.com. That's the most important. All of my handles are Liz Harris, MBA, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And then the person that they can call is Senator Karen Fann, AZ Senator Karen Fann. I will be having in 4 hours, I will be doing a Zoom, and we will be posting on that Zoom call all the people. Okay. All the people can basically call around the country. How do people get on
the Zoom call? Can the public join in, or is it just for? Is there a site they can go to?
The public can join in.
Yep.
They need to sign up at itsmellsfunny.com.
Fine. It Smells Funny. They go. Liz, thank you so much. You're doing yeoman's work out there. You're a true patriot and warrior. Thank you, Liz. Liz Harris.
Okay. Thank you.
We got through that one okay.
What's the website?
We got to.
Wow, what a website.
Okay. So tell me. Okay, first we're gonna have Boris in a second. Gates blew up today.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing on that
everywhere.
real quick before we shift
Yeah.
gears. Wouldn't it be more financially responsible for a company like Dominion to actually just have a transparency thing going on rather than trying to sue people all over the place?
But that's
and then you kill the story.
I'm not trying to be in their defense. I think they say, hey, we've got the supervisors, we got the counties, we got the governments. We're defended by the guys in Georgia. We're defended by the executive.
I'm just saying it's a weird way of going about it to defend yourself.
I think their point is why. I'm just arguing their case.
Yeah.
They're saying, why should I get into the Liz Harris and the Raheem Kassams and the Steve Bannons and other people?
Because you want to be part of public elections. So be prepared for public scrutiny.
They say right now they report to they're a vendor. They report to the contractor. Yeah. I'm sure the supervisor is saying, let us handle this.
The contractor is the American public.
The contractor is not the American public. The contractor actually technically is Maricopa County in Georgia. That's the problem.
And what's Maricopa County in Georgia?
Well, they report to taxpayers, but I'm
right.
saying, it's the county that actually signs the contract. So they just sit there and go, "Hey, county, what do you want? What do you want me to do?" See,
I think
Raheem,
it smells funny.
If you ever had, listen, don't get me wrong. This is why I think Liz and these people are out there. We have to get to the bottom of it. We can't back away from November 3rd of 2020. This whole thing, we got to worry about the future. Yeah, we got to worry about the future by taking care of the past. She makes a great point. This has been going on for a while and should have been dealt with. And that's what when Texas reviewed it, the great state of Texas, when they reviewed it, remember in that 5-page report, they went through these problems and said, this is why categorically we're rejecting Dominion systems. We just don't like the way it's set up. Okay, we'll return in a second. Boris is going to join us to talk about the trial.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Remember, I'm taking the side of Dominion. I'm playing devil's advocate about the way the world works, and that's the way that people are thinking about it, these elected officials, whether in Georgia or in Maricopa County. And what you're seeing is that activists like Liz Harris are taking people on. They're confronting this, and now she's convinced the Senate out there, work with the Senate, because they've gone door to door, to move. And this is how democracy works, and this is how our side works. We're winning. We're actually winning here by having forcing functions, and this is what you're seeing. I want to go to Boris real quickly. Go ahead.
I just want to remind people, this is a war room. You know,
Yes,
you
yes,
have a
yes.
red team, you have a green
Yes,
team,
yes.
right? A blue team, and
team.
it's for us. It's not for us to take
Agree,
each
yes,
other's sides on
yes.
everything.
We have a saying
Green's
in here.
wild card.
We have a saying in here: "No fighting in the war room." From the Kubrick.
Well,
movie,
you know,
right?
and
because we're
Steve-
fighting all the time, right?
But to your
Yeah.
point as well, I get hit up every single day saying, "What can I do? How can I get involved? How do I listen every day. I'm following all and I share all the articles. But what can I do?" Well, here's somebody
Yes.
in one county
Yes.
that turned out to be a pivotal county.
She made a huge difference.
How many other counties are there
Yes.
out there? What's going on in your county? What can you uncover that's going on? That's what you do.
But
at
you
home.
can also go sign up for her, go on her site, go on the Zoom calls. I mean, when Posobiec that night in Wisconsin stayed up to all hour, like 2:00 in the morning, saw those two great heroes, Knutson and Spindall, that fought back. And quite frankly, when President Trump and his team argues the receipts, they're going to start in Wisconsin, and they're going to start about that commission meeting where they didn't back off, and now we have 200 some thousand,
220.
220,000 illegal IC votes, indefinitely confined. That's the receipts. Liz Harris and her kind of plea to the president, hey, we've got him out here in Arizona. Look, we wouldn't be where we were down to 8,300 votes if it was not for Boris Epshteyn, who was sent out immediately out there. Boris, you know the details. They're fighting like dogs out there to get the audit that they need, and Liz walked through all the details. But I want to pull the camera back. Matt Gaetz today said because of Arizona, because of Georgia, because of Wisconsin, and actually Gaetz said, hey, guys, you say those three, the two best we have the low-hanging fruit. Forget the machines. The two best we have the low-hanging fruit, he believes, is Michigan and Nevada, right, which nobody ever talks about, right? They're kind of on the back of the bus on our list. He's saying, hey, he would put those two first. He said people's heads would blow up because nobody's really followed Nevada or Michigan with the low-hanging fruit. So, Boris, where do we stand? You saw the two filings. Gaetz today said he would resign his seat to represent it. Liz Harris, everybody I'm talking to has said the president's got a free option. You know, Kramer, the senator, comes out here and says, President better be listening because, you know, you don't want this to go about him. He's got to be very careful about how they argue this. Kramer, you can't vote against it because you voted last week. It's unconstitutional. Somebody on his staff ought to wake him up and say, hello, you already voted. It's unconstitutional. How are you going to, now you're going to convict the 45th president of the United States? You, Kramer, are going to convict it. No, sir, I do not think so. I think I'll call that bluff. In fact, I think we ought to call the bluff of all 45 that votes unconstitutional. So, Boris, you're the lawyer here. Tell me where I'm wrong.
You're not wrong at all. And if you look at the states, and by the way, Matt Gaetz is right that Nevada and Michigan were ripe with fraud. Nevada, dead people voting, illegal immigrants voting, people who don't live in Nevada voting. Michigan, don't forget the 71% of unbalanced precincts in Wayne County, meaning a different number of people voting than actually votes cast. Total disaster. Wayne County is where Detroit is. Total disaster in both states. So it's, as we've talked, there's no doubt that all three vectors have to be taken on in full context and with full force. The fact that this is unconstitutional, the unconstitutionality of the actual process of the trial, the fact that there was no incitement, the president said march peacefully and patriotically, and then, yes, the election fraud, the voter fraud. We have to push back on this term coined by the Nazis, the big lie.
Yes.
The Democrats, the media,
For the big steal.
tech are using.
I
The
want-
troika.
I want to put this in perspective. It's very important because the defining moment of the people that have been around President Trump is Billy Bush weekend. Billy Bush weekend. If you were on TV in Billy Bush weekend, you're the hardest core of the hardcore. Last night is the first time, Boris, you ran surrogates for us in 2016. You were so solid for Trump that CNN eventually those guys said, I can't take this guy anymore. He's got to get off. Right? So, I mean, you were like the pulling guard, the blocking back for him. Last night was the first time you've ever kind of disagreed with the president, and you were doing it to be helpful. But I just want to go back to that and have you explain it that, hey, this is so important. It's so fundamental, and I don't think he's getting clear information. I want to go back and hit rewind because the first time, and I've known you for 6 years, you've ever disagreed. I want you to make the case of why you disagreed.
I don't disagree with the president. I agree with everything the president has said. I agree with the fact that there was voter fraud. I agree with the fact that there was election fraud. I agree with the fact that we have to investigate it and we want to fight for election integrity. My perspective, and as I've said to you, is that if you look at that filing yesterday, there was too much in the middle. Are we denying it? Are we admitting it? And there was some admitted in part, denied in part. I would have denied everything, said we're denying all of this cockamamie charade from the Democrats, and let's go and attack on these three fronts that I continue to lay out, including the election fraud. Why are we listening to finger wagging from Kramer? It makes absolutely no sense to me. Why are we being browbeaten by Lindsey Graham or Nancy Pelosi in the House or crying Chuck Schumer in the Senate? This is the Trump movement, the MAGA movement, and if you see in the reporting, the president apparently is on the same side in terms of, yes, let's fight the constitutionality here. Let's fight the fact that there was no incitement, but let's also fight on the election fraud. So I continue to agree with President Trump 1,000,000%.
Okay, hang on. I want Boris to go first, Raheem, and then Jack. There is a monumental event happening across the street right now. The Republican conference is meeting, and they're talking about Liz Cheney. They're also talking about Green, but principally Liz Cheney. Boris, your perspective. She said in her comments, he called the mob together. He riled up the mob. It's always the mob, and he, the president, right? She said it. It's in the record. It's on page 2 or page 3. The first quote they got in their indictment, in their theory of the case, is Liz Cheney. She hasn't talked to the people of Wyoming beforehand or what her logic was. She didn't have the common courtesy or decency to talk to them afterwards. Boris, what's your perspective of Liz Cheney? Because a bunch of tweets coming out saying looks like McCarthy's backing her to stay in leadership. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, Liz Cheney is the most powerful representative that Washington, D.C. has ever had in Congress. Let's be honest. She doesn't truly represent the people of Wyoming, and you could tell that by where her popularity is right now in Wyoming, which is at 10%. Literally at 10%. It is unbelievable how unpopular she is with Republicans in Wyoming. And if she is not believed to be representing her constituents from Wyoming, how could she be the number 3 person in the Republican conference? I just don't see it. She also Congresswoman Cheney overstepped her role as the chair of the conference. She was whipping votes for impeachment. And then she had this Jerry Maguire moment where she only got 9 people to go with her. And that's very important. She's not the whip. Steve Scalise is the whip. But she went outside her role and was whipping for votes for impeachment of the president of her own party, the president who just got 75 million votes, more than any incumbent in the history of this country, the most popular person who's in the Republican Party by far and away, and the leader of this party. And
70% of the vote in Wyoming. Quickly, Raheem, Jack.
Well, I mean, to jump in real quick, that it's really interesting, the gaslighting in all of this. They are trying to gaslight you to think that these are the people in charge, that you shouldn't listen to yourselves. They don't want you to pay attention to the fact that, yes, there was a violent disturbance that happened on January 6th, but prior to that, there were 100,000 people who showed up peacefully that day. There were 50,000 people in Western Pennsylvania that showed up for a movement. Those people haven't gone away. Donald J. Trump is the most popular Republican in the history of the party, period.
I think if the Republican Party leaves Cheney untouched in all of this and allows her to still masquerade as a leadership representative of the Republican base, then what they're effectively doing is endorsing what she said and endorsing what's on page 1 of the Democrat legal brief.
Absolutely.
And that's the question that people need to ask their representatives is, hey, don't just give me your position on Liz Cheney. Oh, Liz Cheney, fierce defender of the Constitution, whatever. Don't just give me that. Tell me, do you endorse what she said? And do you endorse her being used for the Democrat legal brief? Because that's what you're doing.
Boris, respond to Raheem. That's a brilliant point. What do you think?
I think that the Republican establishment has to realize that this is not, and Raheem makes a great point, this is not the Republican Party of 1992, of 2000, of 2010. This is the party right now. That's what it is. That's where the excitement, that's where the basic movement is. And Liz Cheney made a mistake. And leadership is to be judged based on key moments. And this was a key moment in time. Yes, a horrible event happened at the Capitol, but then Liz Cheney took that event and decided to blame it on the president of her own party, obviously revealing long-standing disdain for President Trump. And that's her choice as an American, as a public official. That's her choice. But choices have consequences. The consequence here is that, as Raheem said, as Jack said, as you said, Steve,
Boris, she chose bad.
Want to hop in with?
She chose badly. Yep.
Want to hop in with some breaking news on all of this? Tara Palmieri coming out with that. On top of the meeting, Kevin McCarthy tells members he supports both Green in her committees and Liz Cheney in leadership. He's trying to have his cake and eat it too.
Can't have it both ways. Raheem, Boris, how do people give us your coordinates, social media coordinates? People can keep up with you during the day.
Thanks so much, Steve. Follow this closely. Very interesting what's going to happen here in this interplay between Liz Cheney and Marjorie Taylor Greene. My coordinates at Boris EP on Twitter, Boris_EPSHTUYN on the gram, Boris_Epshteyn on Instagram, at Boris EP on Twitter. Thanks for having me. And to everybody, stay strong and God bless.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about it. Looks like the SEC may be coming after the Reddit rebels. We'll deal with that tomorrow, Boris Epshteyn. Okay, short commercial break. We'll return. Jack Posobiec has been picking on AOC all day. We're going to get a full explanation. I don't like you picking on AOC. I want more. I want AOCs in the Republican Party. I want bartenders.
We're going to have a conversation.
We're going to be back in a second.
About that.
We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, it's from the live chat. Just want to say, E pluribus unum just hit us with the establishment knows one rule. The swamp sets the agenda. They will never bow to the unwashed masses. Their only message is shut up and pay your taxes. Pretty powerful from that. Also, in the live chat, sending us powerful messages the entire time. They also want to know, these are activists. They want actionable items. They're saying, give me McCarthy's office number. I want to call now. I want to email. Raheem Kassam, can you help us out?
202-225-2915. That's 202-225-2915.
You ought to...
Ring.
McCarthy needs to hear from you if you do not agree with his decision on Liz Cheney to back her. I hope he asked the question in front of the conference that she could answer. Is she going to Wyoming this weekend to stand in front of that conference? They're having to give all the county chairs and others from the counties that I think 10 counties now have voted to censure her, and a number of those counties have voted to also demand that she resign.
And CNN is now reporting that Liz Cheney gave an 8-minute speech to open off the entire meeting, and that she did not apologize. She didn't apologize to the counties that have censored her, the voters that voted for her, or to even her constituents that she represents there in Wyoming that voted overwhelmingly for Trump in that election.
I tell you what, we may try to get some of the Wyoming folks on here before the end of the show. Mr. Raheem Kassam.
You are totally trying to avoid the AOC thing.
No, I want to go to it now. I want to go to it now because it's number one trending. Listen,
history on this one.
Look, I'm not crazy about all of her politics, and particularly some of the shots she takes. However, I have said from day one, I want more AOCs in the Republican Party. I want bartenders. I want people that had to work that shift and got basically were able to pay for things because of the tips, because they weren't getting enough wages. People who know the tougher side of life. I think in many regards, I know the audience is going to blow up, she has been a breath of fresh air in that she took on the Democratic establishment against long odds. She's won. She's tough as boot leather. She goes out of her way on their side. I don't agree with her politics, but I like the style in which she's trying. She teaches these civics lessons every night where she's cooking. I want our people to do that. She's an engaging personality, and if we don't see that, that is how you communicate to a younger generation, and particularly a generation of activists, and get them, motivated. And you do this all the time, we're not going to win elections. And so in that regard, and remember, I'm not
all
into
those
politics,
things can be true.
Here
come
the haters.
Hold on a second.
Still got to call out her lies.
This is also. Is this the same Steve Bannon that 2 days ago was urging her to primary Chuck Schumer to put up or shut up?
I do.
Now she's tough as boot leather.
It's
2 days ago it was primary.
My daughter,
Pelosi's the master political strategist.
Ask my daughter, who's the West Point grad. This is the way I coach young girls basketball, challenge them all the time. AOC, she has to take on Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's quaking in his boots. The last thing Chuck Schumer wants to see is AOC coming for him.
Right, but so AOC, when Ted Cruz...
Why are you picking on her?
First of all, I'm not picking on AOC, but I am fact-checking her. I am fact-checking her.
What's
I am
the falsehoods?
fact-checking her, and I'm fact-checking falsehoods. Look, when Ted Cruz reached out to AOC and talked about reaching across the aisle, did she reach across the aisle? No.
This is on the Reddit. This is on the Reddit Rebels.
On Reddit Rebels, she turned around and accused him of trying to have her assassinated. Right?
Yes.
That was her
Yes, I saw that.
bipartisanship,
Yes.
her idea of actually moving the ball forward on both sides, right? And this is where we're asking the question of whose side is she really on?
Okay.
Then we have these, as you say, she goes on Instagram, she's telling these stories, she's reaching out to people, she's using that pathos, she's using that emotion.
I didn't think that was her finest moment the other night. I did not think that was her finest moment. As an observer of her, I didn't think it was her finest moment.
She's going a little bit overboard with it. She's saying,
why did you say that?
And I say that because she's claiming that her life was in danger, but yet you turn around and you say, well, hold on a second. Let's actually go look through the facts.
But her
on
life
all
was
this.
in danger. I watched it. I saw it. Her life was in danger, wasn't it?
She may have felt threatened.
You're telling me it's not?
She may have felt
She was
threatened.
in the Capitol being attacked, and they had the thing.
No, hold on, though.
She was in the Capitol, right?
She wasn't in the Capitol. She wants you to think she was in the Capitol.
Time out.
But we're going to have to fact check this, and that's all I'm doing here. We're fact checking.
What do you mean she was in the Capitol?
She was in the Cannon office building, where if people who don't know the way the Capitol complex is actually laid out, this compound.
Oh, she was not in the Capitol. She was over at Cannon?
She was in Cannon.
Across the street?
Across the street. And yet when she tells the story, at first she said
did they have,
that
did
the
they,
rioters got in.
That means that you were closer than she was.
You and I walking down the street were actually closer.
The war room's closer. No, seriously, did rioters get, this is the first I've heard, did rioters get into the Cannon building?
No. She claimed at first in her story that the rioters breached her office. But then when they pushed back on that and they said, wait a minute, you were in Cannon, then she said, oh, well, actually it was a police officer. But the police officer made me feel so threatened.
Slow down. You're telling me that whole thing the other night, which was, you're on the edge of your seat if you're watching it, right? Because she's going to, and they had the other woman, didn't the other woman come in and defend her, right? Said it happened, right? There was, I think, another person came and said something, but you're on the
way she went to Katie Porter's office. Katie Porter's, which is in Longworth.
Yeah, again,
that's in Longworth. That's actually farther,
which is further, right? So
I think we have the map.
Hold on, hang on. Let's put the map. Let's put the map. But slow down. I just have a question. Did the protesters or rioters or whoever, you had the inner core of the bad guys, then you had everybody else wandering around with things. Did anybody get to Cannon? Because Cannon, for people don't know,
evidence of this.
Cannon, you have the Capitol, and then you have the grounds, and then you have across the street.
She did.
You have
she said they were in Cannon.
She said they were at her door.
Independence Ave. Then you have the Cannon office, and then next door, back is Longworth.
Yeah,
and that's where most of the offices are. She was not in the Capitol.
No,
she was not in the Capitol. So I tweet out an article from Red State, just kind of walking you through all of this stuff. She screenshots that and says that I'm trying to be misleading, that I'm trying to mislead the public about what was really going on, because she knows that I've caught her in something, so she's got to respond as quick as possible.
Why did she say misleading?
Because she knows that I'm poking holes.
I know, but when she said misleading, she had your map, and she said
she didn't have the map.
She said just your. What was in the tweet that she's implying is misleading?
That she wasn't in the Capitol.
No, but what she did say to you, Jack, she was like, and by the way, this sort of goes to the very first point you made, which is that she's an ordinary person, a bartender, real life experience. Actually, firstly, we know she's kind of auditioned for this Justice Democrats position, right? That's how they found her. She's not authentic. Cenk Uygur. She's not authentic like that. But park that.
The haters are out.
Park that. Hold on.
The haters are out.
Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead.
Please.
I wish we auditioned that well.
Fine. Make that point. But she auditioned. She's an actress.
She didn't audition. They had interviewed. It was a casting call. They did. They interviewed people from life.
Right.
They interviewed people.
Right.
What's the problem with that?
That's not an organic way to find genuine working class people. That's when a working class person goes and says, "I am doing this and I am running." Right? There's a complete difference. Anyway,
it's actually when Lauren Boebert.
Exactly. That's
Lauren
real.
Boebert is
Lauren
real.
Boebert did not answer an advertisement in a newspaper. right?
She has a GED. She is a small business owner. She's a spark plug.
Yep.
An absolute believer in what she stands up for, that she's fighting it. And
Are
to
you
this
implying
day,
AOC doesn't?
I'm saying the AOC goes out there and embellishes. She embellishes stories the same way that Brian Williams
But
did.
let's go back to what she responded to
Okay,
you
go
with,
ahead.
right? She
Right.
responded to you by saying, Jack Posobiec, you don't understand the way the grounds of the Capitol work, and your map doesn't make reference to the tunnels and the ease of access that there is between the Capitol and the Cannon building.
There is a tunnel.
Of course.
But it's, last time I looked at security down
yeah,
there.
of course. What a ridiculously elitist thing to say. Firstly, Jack works about 30 seconds.
First of all, I
from
do
there.
work on Capitol Hill,
Right.
actually.
Secondly,
within
I would
walking distance of all of
I
this.
would hazard a guess that anybody who lives and works around here has taken tours of the Capitol building, understands the way it works. We know that there are
Well,
tunnels.
every
I've
time I
been
go
in
to
those.
meet with a congressman
I've
or a
walked
senator,
through them
walking
myself.
through the
By
tunnels.
the
yeah.
way,
So
the engine room of the war room's not loving my. She's not an actress.
So
I'm
she-
getting lit up.
So she tries to pull the "you don't go here" line, right? You're not one of us.
Right,
You're
I'm
not
not one
in
of you.
Congress,
Can I
and
ask,
therefore
can,
you don't
can
understand.
I ask a basic question?
That's why this is
If-
trending,
wait,
by the
if
way.
she-
hold on.
if
We
she
haven't
was in
even-
canon, if
we
she
haven't
was-
said what's trending yet.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why
So
this
we
is
have
trending.
to get we have to cut signal not the noise, Steve.
Right.
Signal not the noise, right? What's trending right now after my response to her of posting this map is Alexandria Ocasio-Smollett. Number one trend nationwide
United
in
States.
Twitter after my response to her is that AOC, we're glad. I thank God. I thank God that nothing happened to you. I hope nothing bad ever happens
of
to you
course,
entire
exactly.
life.
Yeah.
But there were no rioters at your door. It was a police officer who was coming to escort you. And then you accused him of threatening you because he was trying to get you to safety in an expeditious manner.
Can I ask a basic question? I think this is going to be very important as we go forward because I think so. The Cannon building is pretty far removed across Independence Avenue
Correct.
from the nation's capital, the capital itself. Were there any protesters that got over to the Cannon building either through the tunnel or just on the surface and went over there? Can we find
When
that?
they went through, and I don't think we have this map, but when they went through, remember Gizmodo did this. They were pulling up the Parler IP addresses and they were geotagging people and geolocating them as to everywhere they were. And on that map, they were only in front of the main Capitol building itself.
So you're saying by that evidence, and let's take that for what
That's signals intelligence.
SIGINT for this for purposes of discussion. Let's say that's accurate. You're saying that there's no evidence that any protester, violent or unviolent, or even some of the tourists are kind of wandering around, right? Just kind of came up from the thing and saw something there, and the cops are showing them, hey, you can go on in. No one went to Cannon.
There's none.
How possibly could she have that dramatic, heart-rendering performance the other
I
night?
don't
Which
know.
was,
Maybe she's an actress.
You know, we all have that one friend in high school that no matter what the story is, they find a way to make it about themselves.
Yep.
But why would her staff allow that to happen? Why would the
Well,
staff?
that's a good point.
That's a great point.
Because remember, she hasn't quite been as hot on the trigger as she was when that guy was
Saikat Chakrabarty,
Yeah.
who was part of the Justice Dems,
Yeah.
was working with her.
you couldn't lay a finger on her.
And he was writing a lot of her talking points. We have to say
explain
this.
to our audience. I mean, the Justice Dems, and that was the group she talked to because they were looking for a candidate that could take on the establishment. They were kind of the left wing.
You mean almost like auditioning?
Oh,
Well, hold on. People would argue if we had better auditions or things, if Tea Party groups had done that kind of selection process
Yeah,
and gotten those
sure,
kind of things.
sure,
It's just,
sure.
I would say
Maybe
that,
we should.
I would say that is screening. I know you guys, the haters, would say it's auditioning. Okay, we're going to lose half the audience. So that's why I got to have you two guys.
yeah, exactly.
Remember, I got to play devil's
No,
advocate.
look,
here.
Chakrabarty was her.
He's a genius. I
Yeah,
think.
was her
Smart
genius.
guy.
You know,
He's
was
a
her
very smart guy.
was her
Very
Steve
smart
Bannon,
guy.
Smart
right?
guy, smart guy.
He was her Steve Bannon, and since he's gone, a lot of her things don't add up. Now, I'll give you this: the 100,000 live views on Instagram every night that she's getting, that's impressive,
And very
and we absolutely have to. I mean, by the way, Jack himself does the live streams and gets, I mean, not that close, but
Big
numbers. But yeah, we need more people doing that. However, she has kind of lost that untouchability.
She lost her edge.
Yeah.
She lost her edge.
Why do you think?
Well, she got ratio today. That's never happened before. It's never happened.
We're
She
going
got
to
ratioed.
we're going to explain that all for our audience. We're going to take a short commercial break. Return. This is
First
signal,
time.
not noise, because this was very important. I hope it does not slow her down in her it's coming forward to primary Chuck Schumer. Remember, you could be in the United States Senate. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to return in the War Room in a second.
Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the station.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, the reason we're pursuing this is normally the kind of stuff that I think is noise, not signal, but for our audience, understand. Accusations have been made, have been so about domestic terrorism, the white nationalists. She's fearful for her life about congressmen who she.
But we talked, and I keep coming back to this point, and I said this is why the president should appear at the Well of the Senate, or at least go to Trump Hotel to make the case, because they are calling all Trump supporters domestic terrorists. They are going after people with TSA if you're going to fly, if they found a report that you were, or on facial recognition if you're involved with January 6th, right? And this is a U.S. Congresswoman, right? This is someone who has immense power. She is in the majority party of the House. When they are talking about putting forward a new domestic terrorism bill, these are the people who are going to be doing the writing of that bill.
She's the second most powerful person in the House because she stood up Nancy Pelosi. It's AOC versus Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
They talk about the progressive wing demanding things. It's AOC. She leads not just the squad. She leads that whole thing. Okay, for Denver, I want to go and play some of the things that she put up the other night. Our audience may not be familiar with it. Let's play her recording.
Taking that I felt that things were going to be okay. And that, I had fulfilled my purpose. Anyways, sorry guys. So anyways, as I'm hiding in this bathroom, hearing these yells of these men, or just a man, just one man, going, "Where is she? Where is she?" I start to look through the door hinge to see if I can see anything. And there's like a door here, and there's like another door here. So I'm like trying to look through two door hinges. And so I look through this door hinge. That my life was taken.
We have the later ones that goes about my personal. Now, the guy identified himself as a police officer, as Capitol Hill Police. Is that the punchline of the story? But she didn't say that. I want to make sure we're accurate and
She
fair to
eventually
her.
gets to it. This was a Capitol police officer
okay.
who was asking where she is to escort her to safety.
Okay,
Right.
that's what
as a member of Congress.
Right.
But you even hear it in that. Even when she's mid-lie, she has to correct herself from a lie that goes too far. She says, "These men."
Why do you say there?
Well,
why do you
maybe
say
just
lie?
one man.
She gives you the punchline, so why you say it's a why you say
Right,
it's
but she's creating a narrative that there are these protesters who are looking for her, and then she goes, "Men," and then she goes, "Oh, man," and then admits that it was a police officer. So she's setting people up. She's setting people up for this narrative.
She knows that
this
she's
is
going to
banging.
be fact-checked.
Where is she? Where is she?
She knows that there are people.
Why
that
not
can
just?
verify
Why can't
this.
she just start her story with, "By the way, what happened to me was a Capitol police officer came to get me," and here's the details of that. But she doesn't. She leads people on this journey where they think that she's being pursued by these Capitol police officers.
Look, Steve. When I came in here,
while you're talking, I want to put up. If Denver could please put up the map, the digital map, and
The geomap.
GeoMap, and this was done by what organization?
it was done by it was reported in Gizmodo. I don't know the exact organization, but it was reported in Gizmodo, and it's all. I think it was the Parler and social media posts. Here it is that were put up. This is all around the Capitol building itself. You can actually see that there are less posts from the side where the Cannon office building is, right? And so when we're talking about all of this, we have to say, look, I came here the day after it happened. I was live the day it did happen. If I had said something false, If I had been like Hillary Clinton with the snipers in Bosnia, or Brian Williams, the helicopters, right? They would have destroyed me. Madeline
Right.
Peltz would be all over that, right? But AOC gets up and she can embellish. By the way, smear a Capitol Police officer
Right.
who was going to her aid,
Right.
who was going to her side, rushing to her, that didn't know what was going on, a day when they actually, unfortunately, did tragically lose somebody.
Where do you stand? Explain what ratio is, Raheem, for the audience. Where do you stand in social media world? Because she's obviously one of the biggest personalities in the world, and you're no slouch yourself, Jack Posobiec. So where do we stand in the
Leveling up?
in Godzilla versus Rodan?
And I think she's got 12 million followers,
Ghidorah.
over 12.2 million followers now. So it's very rare that she gets ratio. Now, what ratio means is, for the people who are unaware, is where you get criticized in your comments to the point where there are more comments under your post than there are retweets and likes on your post. So people are actually weighing in to say, cut the BS. And that doesn't happen to somebody typically who has 12.2 million followers, and it's never happened to AOC before.
Never happened to her.
Never happened.
Never happened. And
So-
the people are saying, how did AOC get ratioed by
Right.
Jack Posobiec?
So-
and because she slipped.
So this
She
is
slipped,
this
and we
is
caught
so
her.
this is the moment where, for a lot of people coming to this and seeing, recognizing that she lied for the first time, and they've watched her on Twitch.
Do you
and they've
think she
watched her
lied or
on
she just
Instagram.
embellished? It's a difference.
It's a very heavy embellish. If I'm being generous,
Is this a character flaw, or do you think that she just got carried away with
I
this?
think what it's going to do is it's going to cause people to now go, wow, all these other things that I've taken for
Well,
granted, what she said,
I asked her a
maybe
question.
they're not true either.
I said, AOC, while I have your attention, since you're, criticizing me, you want to come after me, I have a question for you. Why aren't you down at the border today where Joe Biden is now opening the new overflow centers
Yeah,
for
the
migrant
cages,
children?
yeah.
I know that's such an issue that's important to you. Are you going to go back down
We're
there?
gonna-
Haven't seen it.
We're actually going to have the Angel Moms. Okay, in 30 seconds, I want to give your final thoughts today on what's breaking about Liz Cheney. I want to start with you, Raheem, and then go to Jack. Tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, we're going to have Mary Ann Mendoza, the Angel Moms, talking about the border and what Biden's doing. Also, Bernie Kerik about all the violence that's going around the country is not being reported, from Chicago to New York to Portland, all that tomorrow morning. Liz Cheney.
Well, McCarthy's kind of done the smartest thing he could do for his own skin here, which is he played up the green stuff in order that he could say, oh, I'm actually not going to do anything on either, and effectively that kind of nullifies each other. In his mind, in how he's calculating people will look at this. The problem with that is we are far more concerned with having Liz Cheney removed than we are concerned with Marjorie Taylor Greene keeping her committee assignments, right? And I think even Marjorie Taylor Greene would say that that's the right way to prioritize it.
Everything we're seeing right now is a proxy war for the soul of the Republican Party
Amen.
and the direction of this republic. And the populists are not going away.
I tell you, tomorrow we're going to have a very special ceremony. Someone
Yeah.
sent us a very special gift. We got to take some time. We got Sir Tom Moore to talk about, etc. Real quickly, the AOC thing, 15
Podcast
seconds.
as well.
Podcast with Raheem tomorrow is on fire. You had a
Today's
great-
one was awesome
today,
with
Matt Taylor
Yeah. Go
talking
listen
about
now.
talking about social media. Guy, this is one of the smartest guys in the country. Where does this thing with AOC go overnight?
Or it goes to AOC is, look, do not slip up. Do not smear people. Tell the truth, AOC. And we will be on your side as long as you're on the side of the people.
Put it in back of your AOC and announce tomorrow you're going to primary Chuck Schumer.
Let's go.
That's what we're looking for. Okay, see you tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Angel Moms.